People of Reddit and virtual classes, what was the worst? Oops, I left my camera mic on moment. We had a guy in his car. Unmutes his mic during a presentation to answer a question. And forgot to mute. Presentation carries on and then we abruptly hear him start ordering his lunch from Burger King through the drive-thru. Presentation stops. Everyone listens to this poor kid order his whole lunch. Another kid unmutes, can I get an order of Mozza sticks? 5th grade student's mom in the background. At full volume. Well, you tell that mother that the next time I see him I'm cutting his eyeballs off as I try desperately to figure out which one is unmuted and mute them. Poor girl was totally unfazed, so she likely hears similar all the time. Everyone else just stared in shock for a couple of seconds until one kid just unmutes and goes, it's not school appropriate language at all. Another student. Different time. Had Nana wander through the background. Completely nude. Using a walker so she's just slowly limping through frame. Either I'm the only one who noticed, or these 10-year-olds have amazing poker faces. But I have no idea how I would have dealt with the fallout of that if they'd said anything. I just took to loudly reminding students that anything we can see in the camera counts as part of school and needs to be dressed or seated appropriately, in the hopes that families hear. I was yelling to my mom what I wanted for lunch. I looked back at the screen and everybody was laughing. Kid screamed loudly when we were starting a test. Probably saw the first question then just died inside. Maybe not quite the same thing. But yesterday a girl fell asleep with her camera on. And she was just lying there with her eyes closed and mouth open. For the rest of the lecture. Getting the IRL lecture experience. My brother was in class and my mother started to scream, your room stinks. My sister was in a Zoom lecture for her university course. All were required to turn on cameras for this specific lecture, and some guy obviously forgot and lit a joint on camera to 30+ other students and his lecturer. I'm a professor running Zoom classes right now. Just the other day I had a student shout piece of in the middle of one of my lectures. I asked him if my lecture on research credibility was really making him that angry. I'll sum it up. I had wireless headphones with a mic and left to go to the bathroom. Fuck. Yelling down to my mother, yes. Russia is in Asia. During physics. Bonus round. Cussing out a fighting game during a rough match while my dad was, unbeknownst to me, in a meeting. Unmuted. Nearby. I was in a Discord server chatting with friends. Somehow, the Discord conversation started talking about Velociraptor body pillows. Now I was smart enough not to be in class when the conversation started to unfold. One of my friends, however, was in class and left his mic on. The teacher ended up muting him and talking to him after class. Never did find out about his class reaction to Velociraptor body pillows. I was meeting with my project group for the first time when my boyfriend bust through the door holding my cat with the cat butt aimed at me making machine gun noises. Had to keep my mic video off for like 10 minutes after due to uncontrollable bouts of laughter. We established the ground rule, door closed equals in meeting after that. More like my cat turned the mic on as I'm yelling and swearing at him to get off my keyboard. Someone in my class turned on their mic, coughed loudly for 20-ish seconds, and turned it off. Calamity ensued. During orientation on Zoom, some guy said, man, this class so dumb. I had a Socratic seminar, so it was mandatory to keep our cameras on. I forgot about it and thoroughly licked a yogurt container I has just finished. I still don't know if anyone noticed. Edit. Dot. Not a specific incident, but I had an early elective class, so about 200 people. Last semester way half of us showed up in person and half of us were on Zoom. I guess the professor set the meeting setting for everyone to be unmuted by default when joining because every single day we would have to hear someone on Zoom who didn't mute have breakfast with what would sound like their whole frat sorority. presumably with their phone on the meeting in their pocket, while the technologically inept professor struggled to figure out how to mute for the first 10 minutes of class. I took a live proctored exam on Wednesday, in a room that abuts my horse's run outside. In the middle of the test, my 31-year-old horse let out the longest, loudest flatulence I've heard. 15 seconds plus. Yes. The window was open. No. The proctor couldn't see the window with the horse. For all they know, it was me. I've been told I killed my 11-year-old social life by yelling enjoy the diarrhea at her younger sister when I saw she had eaten an entire box of ice cream bars at once. I was in another room and had no idea my voice carried. So killed my 11-year-old social life. A parent's job right there. My husband is a chemistry professor. He was teaching a class via Zoom and overheard a female student say she'd like to punch him in the face. I guess they have bad chemistry. When I forgot to turn off my video and my cat attacked me. A girl I know had her camera and mic on for answering some question. Her dad didn't know that she was attending classes and he farted out loud. I sneezed and a huge booger flew out. They saw. Some of it got on my hand. Some of it got on the camera. I joined the class on my phone and thought I had my mic muted. I put my phone on my music stand and did some piano practice since the lesson hadn't really started, and after I finished playing the first piece my history teacher said that was some lovely piano playing, but can we get to the lesson now? Not me, but this kid in my friend's class got caught digging for gold in his nose. One of my 5th graders took the whole class to the bathroom. Video off, microphone on. We were in band, playing our instruments and doing our stuff. As usual, nobody wanted to have their camera on. So he is completely fine with that. All of a sudden, I get an earful of loud music blaring through the speakers. Some kid forgot his mic was on after asking a question. And he was playing First Place by Larry. Those who did have their camera on were dying laughing. And the teacher couldn't figure out who it was, because the Google Meet band class was so big. About 2 minutes later it finally stops. And everyone is rioting in the chat. And I was laughing myself. We all bless the kid, because he actually saved us from the last few minutes of class. And the hardest measures, where Google Meets suck, but this was one epic moment. During a one-on-one, my co-worker was screen sharing on Zoom so we could both see and discuss the changes to a document in real time. After an hour, we decided to take a 10-minute break. I went to the washroom and came back to my computer seeing he still had his screen share on and navigated to a NSFW website. I waited until he returned from his break. And I didn't mention anything. Hey, we all make mistakes. And in these trying times, why take away any pleasure or make an interaction uncomfortable? Not in a class and just with friends. But I accidentally left my mic on while eating soup once. Once someone's bird escaped from the cage and was flying around everywhere. The guy forgot to turn off his camera and started chasing it around. Everyone was laughing. Someone was listening to music. We don't know what it is because the volume was too low. But it was just funny. Someone unmuted his mic to say something and someone in the background said "Legio" in a really loud voice. It killed all of us. Haha. Someone unmuted themselves and wanted to say something. But their young sibling said "holy" in a really loud voice. Again. We all died from that. I've heard the N-word more in the past year than I had in my life up until that point. Do you even play Call of Duty? Our teacher was checking if we all were present. Her connection was really bad. We all couldn't understand anything she said. One of my classmates unknowingly that his mic was on. WTF does that idiot think? We can't even hear her. Somehow she could hear that perfectly. I was on a virtual classroom whilst simultaneously messaging a WhatsApp group me and some others in that class were in. Someone made a funny joke when someone was speaking on the group and the person who was speaking saw the message and started laughing. I was in class and some kid accidentally turned his mic on somehow and all I could hear was the loudest fart ever imagined and then said. I had been snuggling with my dog, chatting to myself, and listening to music on Alexa before class. Class started and I first loudly told Alexa to pause, thereby ensuring I had everyone's attention. I followed that up by telling myself, sorry babe, class is starting, thereby establishing I hadn't so off screen. This disrupted grumpy old non-cuddler pup who got up to leave. So I said in a super cringe-worthy sappy voice, thank you for coming to cuddle with me. I overed it. Cue the entire class filling with laughing, muted faces. And me finally noticing that this was all being shared. The instinctive double hand clap over mouth did nothing to make me look less stupid. For the record, my camera and audio were off for the rest of the lesson while I wallowed in embarrassment. It was before a lecture and the prof and all of the students were waiting for the rest to join the meeting. Then all of us can hear from a student. Can they hear us? Her dad. No. My microphone is muted. The student. To have then a full and family discussion about something was not too embarrassing, but still funny. I'm a student but this happened at work. I work in a doctor's office. One of the doctors I work with is lovely but she always forgets to mute herself on Zoom. Every week I hear something new that I shouldn't have. Last week she was upset at some very cis treatment she was receiving. Essentially the male doctors get vacation whenever but she has to book hers or get approval. I'm with her, that's bull. A girl forgot to mute her mic and we all could hear her talk to her boyfriend. Hey. Give me a kiss. Why don't you ever want to kiss me? Very sad and very weird. The teacher just continued as if nothing happened. Not the worst but funny. Teacher warned us he was going to ask a bunch of questions and he expected participation. My wife went on a profanity-laden rant about her professor, who assigned 100 plus homework problems the week before the final to me during class. She was not muted. The professor was also teaching from a sports bar where he was having dinner and drinks while watching a basketball game. And his waitress called him out on it. OJFC. Finally a story I can, unfortunately, share. Had my teacher ask me a question while I was mid-conversation with someone who told me they could do an Elmo impression. Naturally, I asked for an example. After being called on and bolting an answer, I was so invested in this chick's Elmo impression that I forgot to mute my mic. Broadcasted someone saying my name is Elmo to the entire class. Loudly. Was watching Game of Thrones and it was on a sex scene while in class. My cat, Perky, is a screamer when he wants attention. And by that, he sounds like he is being murdered. During a Zoom session for my ethics class the other day, it was me presenting my topic about my case study when Pookie decided to give his battle cry and hopped on the bed behind me. Got a good grade for my work and at the end I now think that my professor likes Pookie more than me as a pupil. I asked a question during a lecture and the teacher was answering me. She was standing at the board away from her computer. So I'm hoping she didn't hear me muttering wobby as she was explaining it. I was getting more confused lol. My mic was on. In a biogeochemistry Zoom Q&A session, I was having trouble adjusting out of gallery view. The professor was screen sharing and using the whiteboard feature. As I moved my mouse to navigate out of gallery view, apparently I was drawing on his board in neon green, with my name flashing each time. He admonished me by name for doodling. I pulled the plug on my computer. My mom was making a chili paste. I commented smells delicious. Across the back porch, the teacher stopped the lesson and asked if I would be sharing. In another class, a university course, a student left their device with a toddler. The kid somehow unmuted the mic and started babbling happily. It was adorable. But the teacher was annoyed because she had to exit her PowerPoint to mute the kid. I was in biology and we were listening to my professor as he explained the theories on why some apes developed larger penises than others. My roommate and I were jokingly discussing the topic and he goes, "Humans don't walk on all fours because our schlongs would drag on the ground." I was unmuted and my professor just goes, "No. That's not right at all." I have a 7-year-old in virtual classes. The worst of this was the time I dropped an F-bomb since I work right next to him. So many stories of PPL trashing their profs. I can't help but feel kinda sorry for these teachers. I know some might not super invested but still. It's covered for everyone. They're trying. My friend was literally masturbating during class once and left his mic on but his camera off. So all of a sudden when the teacher was waiting for someone to answer, all the entire class could hear was "fuck" and tons of fapping noises. I think your teacher had a pretty good idea what was going on. Not too bad. But I didn't realize my mic was on until after I sneezed 10 times in a row. The teacher said "bless you" and moved on while I felt like banging my head against the wall. I heard someone's brother getting beat in the background. Not a class, but my work meeting. We had about 15 people on the video call when a co-worker that had a wide-angle camera that showed above his head and down to his waist. He was on camera when he shoved his hand down his pants to straighten his dick balls. Had it in there for a good 10 seconds before pulled his hand out. A few minutes later, used the same hand to pick up a Dorito and eat it. It didn't happen to me but my friend said out loud that she hadn't attended the lessons for ages and that the teacher was ugly. I joined into a Zoom meeting for a class I had only one other time. Recognizing the teacher, I go, "Hey, this is the have a bitchin' weekend guy." Then realized the class didn't automatically mute you when you join. Some guy had left his camera on and started jacking off on front of around 400 people. I had a virtual class talking about basic repairs, i.e. the difference between the 3 types of screwdrivers. Don't have snowball fights with the insulation in your attic. How to unclog a toilet. That type of basic. So at the beginning of the class my wife asks me what the class is for and I thought I muted my mic and told her it's basic entry level and went on a rant about how stupid the class is and made fun of the we had currently gone over. Well, someone's mic had been opened the entire time and he finally said, "Mute your mic, no one wants to hear that." I thought he was referring to open static mic guy until I heard a voice say in the middle of my rant to my wife, "You've been muted." I went dead silent from embarrassment the rest of the class and only answered 1-2 questions after that. Shocked you had the balls to answer anything after all that. Honestly. My kindergartner, 6, was in a Google Meet one morning while I was eating a powdered donut. As usual I made a mess out of myself and stated, "Wow. I have powder all over me. I'm such a mess." My husband then said to me, "Yep. You have powder all over your chesticles. Like testicles only boobs." Then we heard our son's name. "Good job. You can turn off your mic now." Immediately I busted up laughing and said, "You said chesticles" in front of the whole class. And then we heard our son's name. "Oop, I don't think you turned your mic off. Go ahead and try again." My son was so mad at us and we couldn't stop laughing. It also doesn't help that his teacher doesn't seem like she has much of a sense of humor at all. What kind of monster arrangement by higher ups gives kindergartners a teacher with no sense of humor though? None. I'm too paranoid to miss something like that. My teacher was reading out attendance. She mispronounced my friend's name and my friend said, "That bitch can't even say my name correctly." Luckily he said it in English during French class so my teacher didn't exactly understand. As well as the fact that there was a lot of background noise from other mics. I know he said it because I was on a call with him. Someone sneezed at the beginning of an exam and some kid told them, "Shut the apartard." That kid 100% plays online games. Standard voice chat etiquette. I just finished a workout in my home gym and went right to a scheduled presentation. Halfway through the presenter asked us to turn our cameras on for questions and answers. I did without thinking. A coworker messaged me. I'd forgotten to put a shirt on after my workout. Fortunately no one called me out when I turned my camera off. Unfortunately I think that means that everyone saw me. I just wonder how many thought I was naked. My husband was in a work meeting virtually. He began talking and my daughter shouts out, "Wipe my bum please." I laughed for ages. I didn't notice I was streaming Roblox for the whole class. Not class but on a work call. My senior manager was talking to someone on my team about working on this thing another department wanted us to do. Well, my dog decided to get a plant off the table and start eating it. I turned off my camera and thought I was muted when I said, "Oh no mom, we're not doing this." Well, apparently right before I said that my senior asked us if we would be able to take on the request, and when I got onto my dog it was perfect timing to the question. This was actually a few months ago. It isn't that crazy, but I was in my second period class. Boring AF. I was watching YT videos but I came across this one video song. Keep in mind I had my camera on. And so I decide, hey, why don't I dance because I have no IQ whatsoever. I get up and dance like my life depended on it. 2 seconds into dancing I hear my teacher's voice ask, "Pillow sir, are you okay?" Full stop. The voice scared me to the point where I just had to leave the class. And yes, I'm still in the class now. Not me but my nephew. He's using my computer to do his online classes. He told me as they were doing a group meeting, it was around 6 PM and the sun was down. One of his classmates sent him a message asking if he sees something moving behind another classmate. Neahu looks at said classmate and could see a man peering through the window. He messages the classmate and she doesn't look behind her, but she calls for her father, who comes running and she starts telling him what's going on. He comes running outside holding a machete and starts yelling. Turns out that student had a stalker. When her dad confronted the stalker he ran toward the street but was hit by a speeding car. That went from 10 to 50 to 100% real quick. Girl in my class was caught vaping on camera. She was 13. In gym class. We're not supposed to have our cameras or mics on. And this one kid's dad turned the camera on and just stared at the camera for like 10 minutes, and the teacher kept asking what was going on and he wouldn't respond, and then he turned his camera off, and that was that. Uni course. Security and Global Governance. I was sitting at my kitchen table drinking a quad ice flat white. I had the CUTEST light pink slouch sweater from Garage on. Spilled coffee all down my chest. Panicked. Ripped my shirt off. Flashed my entire seminar. Some kid was rocking around in his dining chair. The teacher called him out and he started apologizing. He thought he muted himself. Poor kid. He kept on rocking in the chair despite the warnings from the teacher. He ended up breaking the dining chair. Long story short. His mom was yelling at him and said a few cuss words at him, but she noticed his mic was on and literally said, "Sorry for disrupting your class." Teacher's name, but I wanted to embarrass student name in front of his class for breaking my goddamn chair. She was obviously furious. The whole class laughed under their tables since we have to keep our cameras on. We honestly felt pretty bad, but we thought it was funny for some reason. I'm pretty sure the kid moved classes or switched to face-to-face learning due to embarrassment. But I never saw him in class ever again. The kid honestly looked like he put up with this BS every day but was embarrassed by it, lol. Someone's parents started making out in the back while we were doing tribes. I wish I had bleach for my eyes. Let's start off with saying that attending virtual classes with birds is like trying to attend with a hyperactive toddler with wings. One of my birds is just heavy enough to press down the keys on my laptop. While running around the keyboard she stepped on the space bar, temporary unmute on Zoom, and just screeched. I'm just glad that the call was focused on the teacher and didn't switch me to the speaker. Not a virtual class, but virtual meeting. My boss's dog started to whine. So he hit the mute button and shouted, "Will you stop whining?" Our client was talking about problems with our code and stopped talking. Turns out my boss had called in first, so the phone's mic was on. There was a pause. My boss said he was yelling at the dog. Then there was laughter all around. I had to ask a question during lecture, so I put my mic on, but my cat didn't like me moving as she was sleeping on my lap. So she did a parkour move and jumped against my belly and away from there. So as I put my mic on, the first thing that the teacher and others heard was UGHHHH. Full stop.